When was the last time you looked at the person you love and actually felt it? Not just noticed their face, not just registered their presence in the room, but truly felt the weight of what they mean to you. If you're honest, maybe it's been a while. Maybe when you hear their footsteps or their voice, it doesn't stir you the way it once did. Instead, there's this strange dullness. You know they matter, but you also know the way you show up for them has started to change. What used to be joy now feels like responsibility. What used to be a spark now feels like an item to check off your day. And that's where the danger begins. Because love that turns into a task slowly starts to lose its heartbeat. You wake up in the morning and instead of excitement, you think about what has to get done. Did I send that message? Did I ask about their day? Did I handle the argument from yesterday well enough? It's as though your connection has become paperwork, forms to fill, obligations to maintain, rather than a choice you're freely making. And somewhere deep down, you know this isn't the way love is supposed to feel. Because love, in its purest form, was never meant to be a duty. It was meant to be alive, chosen, and intentional. And yet, so many of us fall into this pattern, where we love someone, but we stop choosing them. We stay in the relationship, but we stop truly being in it. We keep saying I love you, but the words become routine instead of revelation. If you've been feeling that heaviness, if you've noticed the spark dimming, if you've started to wonder why it feels like effort just to care, then stay with me. Because what you're experiencing isn't the end of love, it's the beginning of a wake-up call. You might not realize how you got here. At first, it all seemed fine. Love was exciting. You couldn't wait to see them, couldn't wait to share, couldn't wait to listen, but slowly, without noticing, your energy shifted. Life got busier, responsibilities piled up, and without realizing, you began to treat the relationship the same way you treat your job, your errands, your chores, something that requires maintenance, but doesn't spark much joy. The truth is, most people don't fall out of love. They fall out of choosing love. And the difference is, everything. Think about it. When you first met them, you were choosing them every day. You were choosing to text them, to notice little things, to give your best self. That choice wasn't forced. It was natural, even thrilling. But over time, that choice started to slip into habit. Habits are good when they're healthy, but habits without heart turn into autopilot. And when love runs on autopilot, it eventually crashes. That's why so many relationships feel like they're fading even though both people are technically still there. So let me ask you directly, are you loving them right now because you want to, or because you feel like you have to? That's the question that will reveal the truth about where your relationship is standing. If the answer feels uncomfortable, that's not failure. That's honest, and honesty is where change begins. But here's the thing you need to hear. Love can be chosen again. It's not gone. It's not dead. It's just buried under layers of fatigue, distraction, routine, and expectation. And if you're willing to wake up, to remember, to recommit to the daily choice of love, you can reignite it. Not by grand gestures, not by chasing the old honeymoon phase, but by reclaiming the very thing that made love so powerful in the first place. The decision to give freely and intentionally. Let me take you deeper into this. Imagine for a moment that the person you're with wasn't guaranteed tomorrow. Suddenly, every ordinary interaction would feel sacred. Every moment would carry weight. You wouldn't think of love as something to get through. You'd think of it as something you're lucky to have. That shift in perspective is what choosing love looks like. It's remembering that nothing is guaranteed, and so every opportunity to love is a gift. The problem is, we don't live with that awareness. We live with assumptions. We assume they'll be there tomorrow. We assume we'll get another chance. We assume we can push intimacy to the side, because it will be waiting for us when we're less busy, less stressed, less tired. But assumptions kill connection. The more you assume, the less you choose. And the less you choose, the more love feels like obligation instead of freedom. Think about how many times you've said, "I love you," without pausing to feel it. How many times you've gone through the motions of a hug, a kiss, a conversation, just because it was expected. There's nothing wrong with repetition. Rituals are important, but the danger comes when the repetition is hollow, when it's stripped of presence. That's when love starts to feel lifeless, even though the actions are technically still there. And here's the tension: your partner can feel that. They can sense when your love is present, and when it's robotic. Even if you don't say it out loud, even if you're trying to hide it, energy doesn't lie. You know this because you've felt it too. You've been on the receiving end of someone giving to you not because they wanted to, but because they felt they had to. You know the difference, and you know how lonely it feels. That's why this matters so much. If you let your love continue to slide into task mode, not only do you lose connection with your partner, you lose connection with yourself. You start to become someone who isn't choosing, who isn't present, who isn't alive to what they really value. And over time that changes you, in ways you don't even notice until it's too late. But right now you have a choice. You can decide whether your love continues down this path of numbness, or whether you begin to revive it. You can decide whether your relationship becomes another box on your list, or whether it becomes the place you actually draw strength from. That decision begins with one simple shift, moving from "I have to" back to "I choose to." So let me speak directly to your heart. You don't have to stay stuck in a relationship that feels like maintenance. You don't have to settle for love that feels like a routine. You have the power to step back, to breathe, to reawaken the truth that love is not a task. It's a choice. And when you remember that, everything changes. It changes the way you look at them. It changes the way you listen. It changes the way you show up. Not because you're supposed to, but because you want to. That's where passion lives. That's where intimacy grows. And that's where the relationship you've been craving begins again. Not with them doing something different, not with life becoming easier, but with you deciding to love fully and freely once more. You might not even realize how much of your relationship has been swallowed up by habit. Think about it. The little moments that once made you light up are now things you barely notice. The sound of their laughter used to stop you in your tracks. Now it's background noise. A message from them on your phone once felt like the highlight of your day. Now it blends into the endless stream of notifications you scroll past. When did that shift happen? When did the extraordinary become ordinary? It's not that you stopped loving them, it's that you stopped noticing them. And when you stop noticing, you stop choosing. That's how love fades. Not in one big dramatic moment, but in 1,000 tiny ones, where you chose distraction, assumption, or autopilot over presence. And yet you know something deeper is possible. You can feel it when you remember the early days, when love felt alive in your body, not just in your mind. You can feel it when you recall those late-night conversations, when you hung on every word because you were genuinely curious about who they were. That version of love isn't gone, it's buried. And it's waiting for you to uncover it again. Here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Love isn't supposed to stay alive on its own. It doesn't fuel itself. It doesn't magically sustain. Love survives and thrives only when it is chosen. And that choice isn't something you make once when you say yes to the relationship. It's something you have to keep making every single day. But that's where most of us fall short. We think love should be effortless forever, that if it requires attention or effort, something is wrong. The reality is, effort isn't the enemy. Forced effort is. Love becomes suffocating when it's effort without desire. But love becomes powerful when effort flows from the decision to choose someone over and over again. You might be asking yourself, but how do I get back to choosing when I feel so numb? The answer isn't to recreate the past. You're not the same people you were when you first met. The relationship isn't meant to rewind. It's meant to evolve. What you're really looking for is a new way to notice them, a new way to choose them. Start by paying attention to the smallest things. When they speak, don't just listen to the words. Listen for the emotions underneath. When they walk into the room, don't just glance, really see them. Remind yourself, This person is not guaranteed to me. This moment is not permanent. If you let yourself feel the fragility of it, you'll start to value it again. Presence is the antidote to love becoming a task. Think about how many hours of your day you give to things that don't matter. Your phone, your deadlines, your endless mental to-do list. And then compare it to how much undivided attention you give to the person you claim matters most. That imbalance is part of why your love feels dull. You've unintentionally placed them lower on your priority list. Not because you don't care, but because the noise of life has drowned out your choice. But you can reverse that. You can carve out space, even in the busiest day, to look them in the eye and be fully there. You can remind yourself that love isn't found in the grand vacations or the perfect milestones. It's built in the 5 minutes you put your phone down and give your whole self to them. That's the moment love stops being a task and becomes alive again. Another reason your love feels like a burden is because somewhere along the way, scorekeeping began. You know what I mean. You started counting how much you do versus how much they do. You started keeping track of every slight, every missed effort, every unbalanced exchange. Love became a math problem, and math has no place in love. Because the moment you start calculating, you stop giving freely. And when love isn't free, it feels forced. The only way to break free from that cycle is to stop keeping score. That doesn't mean you allow disrespect or carry the entire weight of the relationship alone. It means you choose to give without waiting for immediate return. Love only multiplies when it's offered without condition. Otherwise, it shrinks into transaction. And transaction is the quickest way to turn love into a checklist. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you surprised them not with something extravagant, but with genuine thoughtfulness? When was the last time you gave without expecting acknowledgement? When was the last time you looked at them, not through the lens of what haven't they done for me, but what can I give right now that would remind them they matter? That's the essence of choice. Not because you have to, but because you want. You might resist this, because a part of you feels like, why should I keep giving if they're not? But here's the shift. Love isn't about waiting for the other person to move first. If you both wait, nothing changes. Someone has to lead. Someone has to make the first choice. And when you do, you create space for them to follow. You spark something in them that may have been buried just as deep as it is in you. It's easy to assume the problem is them, that they've changed, that they've stopped giving, that they're the reason it feels heavy. But the truth is, relationships reflect us back to ourselves. What you notice missing in them often points to something missing in you. If you feel their love is shallow, ask yourself how deeply you've been giving. If you feel they're distracted, ask yourself how present you've been. This isn't about blame, it's about reclaiming your power. Because if you wait for them to fix it, you'll stay stuck. But if you choose to shift, you'll discover how much control you actually have over the energy of the relationship. Here's what I want you to hold on to. Love that feels like a task doesn't mean the relationship is broken. It means it's calling you to a deeper level of awareness. It means it's time to stop running on autopilot and start actively choosing again. It means there's a version of love available to you that's richer, more intentional, more alive, but only if you're willing to lean in. And maybe you're wondering, but what if I keep choosing and they don't respond? That's the fear that paralyzes so many people. But here's the truth. You can't control their choice. You can only influence it. And the strongest influence you'll ever have is the example you set. When you lead with love, when you show what it looks like to give freely, when you decide to step out of task mode and back into choice, you create a current that pulls them with you. It might not happen instantly, but energy has a way of shifting when one person dares to move first. You've felt this before. Think about a time when you were in conflict with them, and instead of escalating, one of you softened. That single act changed the entire tone. That's what choosing love does. It interrupts the pattern. It takes the cycle of resentment and scorekeeping and flips it on its head. And suddenly, instead of both of you feeling stuck in obligation, you feel the possibility of freedom again. But choosing love isn't just about what you do for them, it's about what you do within yourself. Because here's the secret. When love feels like a task, it's often because you've forgotten to nurture the part of you that actually knows how to give freely. If you're running on empty, love will always feel heavy. If you're burned out, disconnected from your own heart, no amount of effort will feel authentic. So the work starts inside. Ask yourself, am I making space to connect with myself? Am I living in a way that leaves me available for love? Or am I so consumed by exhaustion, resentment, and distraction that I have nothing left to offer? Choosing love means choosing to feel yourself too. Because you can't choose them if you've abandoned you. Think about how differently you show up when you're centered. When you've taken time to rest, to breathe, to reconnect with what matters. Your love flows naturally. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like another task on your list. It feels like an extension of who you are. That's the version of you your partner fell in love with. The version who gave not because they had to, but because they couldn't imagine not giving. That version of you still exists. It just needs to be uncovered. And here's where awareness comes in. The next time you catch yourself sighing as you go through the motions, sending the obligatory message, making the routine call, giving the predictable, I love you pause, ask yourself, am I doing this because I feel like I have to, or because I choose? If the answer is I have to, stop, reconnect, remind yourself of why this matters. Remind yourself that this person is not a chore, they are a choice. That single pause can transform the energy you bring into the moment. Another truth you need to hold on to: love will always ask something of you. Not in the way a to-do list does, but in the way growth does. It will ask you to forgive, even when it's easier to resent. It will ask you to stay curious, even when you think you already know everything about them. It will ask you to be vulnerable, even when it feels safer to shut down. And yes, it will ask you to choose, even when you don't feel like it. That's what makes love real. Not the ease, but the choice in the face of difficulty. And maybe right now, you're standing at a crossroads. On one side is comfort, the safety of routine, the predictability of task mode. On the other side is risk, the vulnerability of choosing again, of opening your heart, of giving without guarantee. One path will keep you safe, but empty. The other will keep you alive, but uncertain. Which do you want? That's the decision only you can make. Because here's the sobering truth. If you don't choose, love dies slowly, not with one big break, but with the slow erosion of intimacy, presence, and joy. You'll still share a life, still share conversations, still share a bed, but it will feel hollow. And deep down, you know that's not what you want. You don't want to just exist beside someone. You want to feel alive with them. You want to feel the kind of connection that reminds you why you said yes in the first place. And that's possible. It's possible not by waiting for the perfect moment, not by waiting for them to change, not by waiting for life to get easier, but by making the decision today, right now, to shift your energy, to say I choose you, not because I have to, not because I should, but because I want to. And I'll keep choosing you, again and again, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it would be easier not to. That's what makes love sacred. Not that it's effortless, but that it's chosen. Not that it's guaranteed, but that it's risked. Not that it's always easy, but that it's always worth it. And when you live with that awareness, when you stop treating love like another item on your list, and start treating it like the heartbeat of your life, you'll feel the difference. You'll see it in their eyes. You'll hear it in their voice. You'll sense it in the way your relationship shifts from dullness to depth. Because love doesn't die when it gets hard. It dies when you stop choosing. And right now, in this moment, you hold the power to choose again. Maybe the most dangerous illusion in relationships is believing that love will sustain itself just because it once burned brightly. You think that the history you share, the memories you've built, the promises you've spoken, are enough to keep it alive. But love doesn't live in the past. Love only lives in the present. It only survives in the moments you choose to nurture it right now. The past can inspire you. The future can motivate you. But the present is the only place where love breathes. That's why so many relationships fade quietly. Not because two people stop caring, but because two people stop showing up in the moment. They get so busy replaying what once was, or worrying about what's next, that they forget the most powerful question: how am I choosing them today? Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. Think about how it feels when someone notices you fully in the present. When they're not distracted, not half listening, not assuming they already know what you're about to say. When they give you their undivided presence, even for a short time, it awakens something inside you. You feel valued, seen, important. That's the exact feeling your partner craves from you too. And the irony is, it doesn't take hours or grand gestures. It takes a shift in intention. But intention is fragile. If you don't guard it, the noise of life will steal it. Work will steal it. Screens will steal it. Stress will steal it. And little by little, you'll drift into living parallel lives together in proximity, but worlds apart in connection. You'll still share meals, but not presence. You'll still share conversations, but not depth. You'll still share love, but not choice. And one day, you'll look back and wonder where it all slipped away. The truth is, love feels like a task when it loses its sense of wonder. Wonder is what makes you lean closer, instead of pulling back. Wonder is what makes you ask instead of assume. Wonder is what keeps you curious about who they are becoming, instead of clinging to who they were when you first met. Without wonder, love goes stale. With it, love stays alive. So ask yourself, when was the last time you were genuinely curious about them? Not just about their day, but about their inner world, about their dreams, their fears, their quiet thoughts they don't share with anyone else. When you stop being curious, you stop seeing them. And when you stop seeing them, they become invisible in the very place they should feel most valued. That invisibility is what makes love feel like a checklist instead of a choice. But here's the beauty: you can rediscover that wonder anytime you decide to slow down and notice. You can remember that the person sitting across from you is not a finished story. They are constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly carrying new layers you haven't uncovered yet. When you approach them with that perspective, love transforms. It's no longer about managing them or tolerating them. It's about exploring them, just like you did in the beginning. And maybe you're thinking, but I already know them. We've been together for years. That's exactly the trap. You don't know them completely. You never will. That's what makes relationships endlessly rich. There's always more to uncover if you choose to look. But the moment you stop looking, the moment you convince yourself you already know everything, the relationship loses its pulse. The danger of treating love like a task is that it turns people into roles. They're not your partner anymore. They're the person who pays bills with you, raises kids with you, shares routines with you. And while those roles matter, they're not enough. Love dies when it's reduced to function. It thrives when it's rooted in connection, and connection only grows when you see the human behind the role. So how do you shift? By daring to bring awe back into ordinary moments. By remembering that nothing about them is guaranteed. By realizing that even the person you think you know best still holds mysteries, still holds untold stories, still holds pieces of themselves they may be waiting for you to notice. Choosing love means choosing to see all of that, not because you're required to, but because you want. And here's something to hold close. When you choose love, you're not just giving to them, you're also giving to yourself. Because every act of choosing love shapes who you are. It shapes the way you see the world, the way you face challenges, the way you understand meaning. When you withhold love, you shrink. When you give love, you expand. That expansion is the real gift of choosing daily. It doesn't just sustain the relationship, it transforms you. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable sometimes. Yes, it will feel like effort, but effort with intention feels entirely different from effort out of obligation. Obligation drains, intention renews. Obligation makes you resentful. Intention makes you alive. And that's the difference between love as a task and love as a choice. So pause for a moment right now. Imagine yourself standing in front of them, not the version of them from the past, not the idealized version of them in your mind, but the living, breathing human in front of you. Can you choose them again today, as they are? Can you choose them not because they're perfect, not because it's easy, but because you've decided that love is more powerful than convenience? That's the daily decision that separates relationships, that fade from relationships, that flourish. That's the difference between surviving together and truly living together. And that's the decision you hold in your hands, right here, right now. Love isn't waiting for you somewhere else. It isn't lost in the past. It isn't hidden in the future. It's here in this moment, waiting for you to notice it, to claim it, to choose it. And the question is simple, but it's everything: will you?